And welcome to Community Baptist Church. I am the Reverend Dr. Philippe Andal, and I'm honored today by several occurrences. I'm honored today to welcome you on behalf of our host, the Community Baptist Church, where I serve as senior pastor. I'm honored to welcome you today on behalf of congregations organized for New Connecticut, which I serve as co-chair alongside Dr. Liz Keenan. And I am honored to welcome you to this point in time when the arc of the moral universe is bending just a little bit more toward justice. Yeah. And so we are Connect. We are congregations organized for New Connecticut. We are a collective of 37 churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and civic organizations from across New Haven and Fairfield counties, and we represent more than 30,000 people. And Connect organizes a broad, diverse, and powerful mix of faith and community institutions to build relationships, develop leadership, dismantle oppression, take action, and win concrete change on a broad range of social, racial, and economic justice issues that affect our families, our member congregations and institutions, and our communities. And today is about second chances and redemption. And as people of faith, we believe that we must understand this on two levels. One, most obviously, we must understand that Clean Slate creates second chances and grants restoration to full citizenship for people who were convicted of crimes many years ago. And two, Clean Slate is also properly understood as a small step that we are taking as a society and as the citizens of the state of Connecticut to redeem ourselves after decades of policies that constructed mass incarceration built on incredible and insidious racism codified in our criminal justice system with a hyper-focus on punishment rather than on rehabilitation. So today, it's not just former criminals who are getting a clean slate. All of us collectively are, for we all have a lot to ask forgiveness for and to redeem ourselves from. And today is one important step. This moment is one important step on that long and hard journey of repentance and restoration.
Right.
So today we welcome members of the press, Governor Lamont, key legislators and elected officials, community and business allies, and our Connect leaders. But most importantly, today we are welcoming the many people directly impacted by criminal records who spoke out, shared your stories, testified in Hartford, and inspired all of the rest of us. Today is truly by, for, and about you. Amen. Yeah. So Mr. Rodney Moore and Mr. Phil Kent, two of the chairs of our criminal legal reform team, will now give us background on Clean Slate and how Connect started organizing it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rodney Moore, and I'm one of the tri-chairs of Connect's criminal legal reform team. Now, Clean Slate is an opportunity for tens of thousands of people right here in Connecticut to be released from second-class status for convictions which they have long since paid their debt. With Clean Slate, Connecticut can be a model for states across the country for how we can begin to end the continuing harm of mass incarceration, which has been particularly devastating to Black and brown communities here and across the country. Clean Slate is good for families, and it's good for the fathers that I work with every day who are part of New Haven Healthy Starts Fatherhood Initiative and just want to get their life back on track to support their families. And it's good for our communities that can regain some wholeness and benefit from new opportunities opened by the implementation of Clean Slate. The numbers you will see later on this chalkboard up here represent tens of thousands of people within Connecticut who will have their records automatically erased starting in January. And Clean Slate doesn't stop there. More people will become eligible as time passes. And still, more people will now have the opportunity to apply for Clean Slate if their records are too old for automatic erasure. Now, as we close into 2024, and after more than 5 years of hard work, Clean Slate will bring new beginnings to so many people. Thank you. And now I bring to you my colleague, Attorney Phil Kent.
Good afternoon. My name is Phil Kent from Congregation Mishkan Israel in Hamden. I'm also one of the tri-chairs of Connect's Criminal Legal Reform Team. Clean Slate started in Connecticut in 2018 with house meetings in our communities and our congregations, some in this very church. We asked people to share their stories about what needs to change to make Connecticut better, and they inspired us. When we learned Clean Slate had passed in Pennsylvania, but only for misdemeanors, we went to work to bring Clean Slate to life in Connecticut and improve it by addressing certain felonies. We met with legislators across the board, professors, legal professionals, people with lived experience in the system, victims advocacy groups, and numerous allies, many of whom are on the thank you list that we are displaying today. We owe a debt of gratitude to the people with the strength to talk about life in the shadow of a criminal record. People like Tammy King, Lonnie Spaulding, Rick Del Valle, Reverend Ray Dancy, Osti Jackson, Steve Doherty, Dawn Grant, the amazing folks from ACLU's Smart Justice Campaign, and many, many more. Our government listened and made a change. Connecticut was just the 4th state to adopt Clean Slate when it passed in 2021. Now 12 states have Clean Slate laws, including New York just recently. And bringing new inspiration, Pennsylvania just passed its 3rd update to Clean Slate last week to now include sealing of felony records. Connecticut and the nation are waking up to the hope and power of redemption. Clean Slate builds a positive feedback loop. It's good for individuals and their families who will get better jobs, more stable housing, and more higher education opportunities. This is good for business and our economy, which greatly needs more workers. And it's good for governance that reduces recidivism and makes our legal system smarter, more efficient, and more humane. Visit cleanslatect.org if you think that you may be eligible. We celebrate Clean Slate today because we believe in the redemption that Clean Slate embodies. Thank you.
And so now we'll hear from 2 persons who will be beneficiaries of this great Clean Slate policy. The first will be via video, and the second will be in person. Let's turn our attention now to the screen.
Hello, my name is Adam Osman. I'm 57-year-old African-American, happily married with 3 daughters. For nearly 4 decades, I have called Connecticut my home. About 15 years ago, I faced a challenge time when I was arrested, leading to misdemeanor larceny conviction. It was the only time I have ever been arrested, but this single incident cast a long shadow over my life, resulting in job denials and years of hardship. But it also ignited a passion with me to advocate for change. I became supporter of the Clean Slate bill, testified in its favor, and actively campaigned for its passage. I'm particularly grateful to Connect for their tireless effort in this journey toward justice. Today, I stand proud and hopeful as I see a positive impact of this bill. It is very happy to witness individuals getting their records expunged, including me, paving the way for a new beginning. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to everyone who worked on this bill, including Connect, legislators, the governor, and the judicial branch. Their dedication is a beacon of hope, not just for me, but countless others from all over the state with different race, age, and gender.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Helen Carabello. 12 years ago, after surrounding myself with the wrong crowd, I was arrested and charged with a felony. Eventually, I pled guilty to a felony drug conspiracy charge, and the judge sentenced me to a suspended sentence. But since then, I have been serving another sentence, not the one that the judge imposed, but one that has been very real with employers, landlords, schools, and professions that have judged me ever since. Despite these never-ending judgments, I moved forward and continue to strive to be better. I went back to school and recently became a CNA, and I'm licensed as a certified nursing assistant. I was given an opportunity by Yale Hospital and now work in one of the intensive care units. I have 5 wonderful children, and I'm very active in their school, and I'm also very active in my parish as well. I've worked very hard to rebuild my life. Just this past March, I recently experienced an issue with the job because of my record. They love me so much, and I went through 3 rounds of interviews in one afternoon. I told them about my record, and they assured me that it was so long ago that they wouldn't even take it into consideration. I got so excited, but after running my background and doing my fingerprints, I never heard from them ever again. 2023 has been a rough year, and let me tell you, I'm still going through it. I just signed up to finish my prereqs for nursing school, and because of this, I won't have to explain to anybody what I went through, and hopefully they won't judge me because of my record, and I'll just be able to get into nursing school. This has been the best Christmas present that I could have ever gotten. Thank you.
And these are just a foretaste of the great stories and testimonies that are to come out of this implementation that we're celebrating today. We're now pleased to welcome Mr. Mark Pelka to serve as our MC for the remainder of this press conference. Mr. Pelka is the Undersecretary of Criminal Justice Policy and Planning for the state and has been a great ally and a tireless champion for Clean Slate. So thank you and welcome, Undersecretary Pelka.
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you for your hospitality. The warmth is just pouring out of this beautiful church in New Haven. We're thrilled to be here, and what a way to begin with the personal stories of people who will benefit from this law as it's been implemented. Wanted to begin by acknowledging the state officials who are here. We are honored to be joined by our Chief Executive, Governor Lamont, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz. We have committee chairs who are here. We have Chairman Stastrom, Chairman Winfield from the Judiciary Committee.
Yes.
From the Public Safety and Security Committee, Chairman Gaston is here, sir. Thank you. Tireless champion across so many critical areas, Representative Porter, who we know was a critical partner. And 2 mayors, Mayor Bronin, Mayor Ganem and Mayor Ellicor are both here. Thank you so much for your leadership. I'd like to use this opportunity to put the focus on the stories that course their way through the halls of the state capitol during discussions of Clean Slate, of people who are directly impacted by collateral consequences of a criminal conviction, and people who benefit immensely from this law. This gentleman I'm about to introduce needs no introduction, Mr. Anderson Curtis, ACLU Smart Justice Champion. Yeah. When Mr. Curtis speaks, people listen. Sure.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anderson Curtis. I'm the Senior Policy Organizer at the American Civil Liberties Union of Connecticut. I am the son of Albert and Rita Curtis. In 2019, Mount Airy hosted a press conference for Connect Clean Slate, and I invited people to the work of passing Clean Slate. Today, I stand here on the shoulders of some, but alongside many. The implementation of Clean Slate is but a step in the process of restoring humanity and dignity to people. I emphasize this for me because I advocated for Clean Slate even though I was not eligible for Clean Slate. This work is about the people and not politics. I invite you to the challenge that there's more work to be done. Therefore, we press on. Therefore, we fight on. And now it's time for one of my favorite things. People! People! People!
This is perhaps the easiest MC role I ever could have been assigned, because my role should be get out of the way and let the people come forward. We heard earlier from Ms. Attorney Kent about the Clean Slate laws being enacted across the country. 12 states in total have enacted laws, with many pending and many ongoing initiatives. We're going to hear from the Vice President of the Clean Slate Initiative, Mr. Jason Cooper, to help place Connecticut in the national landscape and share perspective on the contribution Connecticut's law will make to the national conversations around record clearance.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Cooper, and I'm the Vice President of Programs for the Clean Slate Initiative. I want to start off by thanking Governor Lamont and all the elected officials who made it possible for people in Connecticut who have an arrest or a conviction not to be sentenced to a life of poverty. Every day, I work with partners in states nationwide where coalitions are following Connecticut's lead. And I can tell you what the data says, that clean slate laws are good for working families, employers, and the economy as a whole. However, the most meaningful impact of clean slate policies is found in the transformation that a second chance can have on people's lives. This law that we are celebrating today is powerful because of the difference it will make in people's lives. That's why the organizing and power built by Connect and other partners are so important. I look forward to seeing this group continue its work, and once again, I want to thank all of the organizers, leaders, and partners who helped pass Connecticut's Clean Slate law, ensuring that everyone who earns one gets a shot at redemption. Thank you.
I mentioned earlier the personal stories and testimonies of people who benefit from this law are going to really be the guide, the North Star for our work today, but we also should acknowledge the employers out there that are struggling to find people to fill the available jobs in Connecticut. And the voices we're going to hear from today who will benefit from this clearance just want a second chance, just want a chance to be considered. And employers are powerful champions for clean slate laws across the country, the national level and in each state, because they recognize the challenges that they're finding recruiting workforce to fill the available jobs. That's why we're so lucky to hear from the private sector today. From J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, Ms. Nan Gibson is here to share her insights as an employer.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Governor Lamont. Thank you, all the policymakers who are here today. For your leadership on clean slate reform, J.P. Morgan Chase is committed to giving people across the country a second chance. We have a presence here in Connecticut and all across the country, and we're always looking for top talent in the communities that we serve. Clean slate is common sense reform that lowers barriers to employment and more fully taps the talents of thousands, if not millions, of people who are currently unemployed or underemployed because of their past record. Over the last 3 years, roughly 10% of JP Morgan Chase's new hires are people with records. Last year alone, that represented about 4,600 people who we were able to bring on to our staff across the country. And I just need to underscore, these are folks whose history have no bearing on the jobs that they were hired to do. As a founding member of the Second Chance Business Coalition, JP Morgan Chase is also working with nearly 50 large companies that are also committed to developing second chance hiring and advancement strategies within their firms. These companies are household names, and they have a presence in virtually every community across the country. So when someone can't get their foot in the door to compete for a job, it hurts businesses and communities alike by limiting access to economic opportunity. We believe people should be given a fair chance to get their lives back on track, and Clean Slate provides the opportunity to do just that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Continuing with the theme of vibrance and growth, we are fortunate to be in the city of New Haven. I'd like to recognize the mayor of the city, Mayor Elicker, thank him for being here and helping to appreciate from a local, from the city of New Haven how this law will help promote social justice and help further the economic growth happening in the city of New Haven. Mayor Elicker, to you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
A lot of energy in this room, a lot of energy. It's so great to be here. Welcome to the city of New Haven for folks that aren't from the city of New Haven. Not surprising that this event is held in New Haven because we have some of the best clergy in the state, and we have some of the best state delegation with Senator Winfield, Robin Porter. We've got good partners in Bridgeport, right, Representative Staffstrom? It's also not surprising because we struggle with what I believe is our promise to people that are coming out of prison, that we truly give people a second chance. We talk a lot about being a second chance society, but the reality is we are not. We are not. Around 900 people every year come back to the city of New Haven out of prison. And the work that we are doing with our team to create the press program, to ensure that there's hands-on caseworker support, wraparound support for people that we in particular think may be involved in the potential of getting involved in violence but are coming out of incarceration. The work that we are doing expanding the reentry welcome center so that everyone that comes out of prison is dropped off in front of the welcome center so they can get resources. And now with this initiative today, it is one step closer to truly following through with what our promise should be, a second chance society. We got a lot more work to do, but I tell you, with this group Connect, pushing, that kind of advocates that we have, this is how we get these initiatives across the finish line. Really grateful for everyone and the work that you are doing today.
It's my privilege to turn next to the Judiciary Committee in the Connecticut General Assembly, two gentlemen who need no introduction, and my best move would be to get out of the way and let them approach the microphone. I begin with Chairman Gary Winfield, who, when he speaks, people listen. When he speaks, it's from the brain, it's from the heart, and it's from the soul. And I feel that every time I have a call with the senator or a conversation with him, I come away a little more open-minded, a little more appreciative, and a little more grateful that he's the one chairing that committee alongside Chairman Staffstrom. So Chairman Winfield, sir.
Thank you. So in 2018, someone said it was common sense, but in 2018, I sat in a room after we attempted to do this bill. And there were some folks who didn't think it was common sense. And I remember getting really hot and calling Mark and telling Mark, come here, right? And we went into a room the next day with those folks, and I won't tell you what I said because it should probably never be repeated. The one thing I will tell you that I did say was, we're gonna get this done, and we did. And that's important. And it is important because what we have been doing is purposely leaving people behind, purposely leaving people in shackles that you can't see when they come out of our system. We talk about rehabilitation. That has something to do with the word habilitate. Habilitate means to make ready for, to prepare, but we didn't do that. And so you come out, you get a second chance at what? Right? You get a second chance in the context that you still have a record that prevents you from doing things. You get a second chance in the context that many of these folks have come from a family who's been through the same thing that they've been through. That's not a second chance. And so this is a little chip at what we see in our society. But the real question is not just, what do we do here? Thank God we're going to implement this. The real question is, are we the people who should be jailing the folks we jail because we didn't do what we needed to do to rehabilitate them? Right now in the state of Connecticut, you have young folks who are not getting the education that they're supposed to get. You have a college system that is going to be, listen, I don't need the applause because I know they're going to give me the time. You have a college system that is the system of opportunity for young folks who come out of these communities. And what are we doing to that system right now when the system becomes a majority of those folks? If you believe in second chances, then you better be giving them a first chance. That's what we got elected to do. That's what we are here for. When I go back into my community, and I'm across the street from Robin and we talk to each other about what we see in our community, we see the results of the policy we have. And the results of the policy we have is something we should never see on those people's lives. And so, listen, thank God for this. But there is a lot of work to do, which includes what we do before we ever get here. And also, we left some folks behind when we did this policy, right? We fought heavily to make sure we got some of those felonies. I'm here to tell you, some people won't like to hear this. But until we've said that common sense approach applies to everyone, I ain't done.
Connecticut General Assembly is blessed to have Senator Winfield as co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. And I think as someone involved more on the implementation side, I can say the senator remained involved all the way through. It shows a commitment not just to legislation and pushing it forward as strenuously as he did, but also remaining actively involved all along the way. And the same is true for Chairman Stastrom, who was a consistent and steadfast and steady and heartfelt leader on the area of clean slate. Chairman Stastrom, look forward to hearing from you, sir.
So look, the worst part of my job is I often have to follow Senator Winfield. But seriously, the best part of my job is when you see an idea come through to fruition. And I remember being in a church probably sometime in 2016 in Southport, where we had one of the first conversations with Connect about the possibility of this legislation. And it seemed so far, and it seemed so remote, and it seemed like we would never get to this day. But to be able to stand here, a year after I shared a story last year in this very church about my friend Angie, who unfortunately worked for a bank that maybe wasn't as progressive as JP Morgan is. Thank you very much, JP Morgan. And she had had a job as a parking attendant for 22 years before she was let go a week before Christmas because of her criminal record and a change in ownership of that institution. Now, thankfully, Angie was able to get her job back thanks to a lot of advocacy and maybe some push from a certain chair of the Judiciary Committee who said you might not want a press conference on this issue. But this legislation is for those folks who are Angie but don't have somebody like one of us standing here today. It's for the hundreds of thousands of folks across our state who have had a run-in with the law and are having trouble getting housing, having trouble getting a job, having trouble accessing education. We're building up our economy here today. You know, one of the things I said on the House floor when I brought this out is this bill, I think in my 10 years in the legislature, is arguably the single biggest economic development bill the state of Connecticut has passed in that decade. And the best part about that is we're doing it while other states are starting to follow our lead. And you know why they're following our lead? Because Connecticut is the third safest state in the entire nation. Let me repeat that, because some folks seem to want to dispute that. Some folks seem to talk about anecdotes or look at news reports on certain TV stations at 6 o'clock and not actually the data. The data is Connecticut is the third safest state in the country. The data is that over the last 12 years, we've cut our violent crime rate in half. Now, I don't need to tell anybody here in New Haven, and I don't need to tell anybody back home in Bridgeport, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to cutting our violent crime rate. But let's be clear. Cutting our violent crime rate and criminal justice reform are not mutually exclusive. We are showing that in Connecticut. We are leading on that in Connecticut.
It is my great honor next to introduce Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz of our state, and her leadership and presence and commitment all along the way speaks volumes to her character and her desire to unleash the human capital, the human presence, the dignity that's in this room today of people who just want to secure stable housing, a next ladder up in their career growth, access to an occupational license, access to education, the sorts of dreams and ambitions that every God-given person should have. And it's my honor to introduce her to you all, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz.
Mark, thank you so much. So I think you're starting to get a feel for the two reasons that this trailblazing legislation was passed. First, you had visionary leadership in Gary Winfield and Steve Statstrom and Robin Porter in our legislature who had the courage to put this forward, but they could write a bill. It was the people not prisons, who would meet me at my car every day when I got to work at the Capitol, right? And say, hey, Susan, how's that bill going? Right? And they weren't just talking to me, they were talking to legislators and policymakers. And let's be honest, all of us make mistakes. Most of us have the opportunity to learn from our mistakes and the opportunity to grow and overcome them. But for many people who got convicted of low-level offenses, they were forced to continuously live with those mistakes over and over and over. And so today, we have the opportunity to see the erasure of records of more than 100,000 people. And here's why I stress that 100,000 number, because right now in our beautiful state, there are 100,000 open jobs for people in our state. And so we have this incredible opportunity to fill those jobs with determined, tenacious people who want to show that they've learned from their mistakes, that they are ready to be productive citizens and to help their families, but also help our state and to uplift our state. And I'll tell you this, I was talking to the number 2 person at Electric Boat, and he said, you know, we're looking for new employees in 2 places. And I said, what are those places? And he said, first, people who are coming out of our incarceration system. And second, the people who are new to our state and our country. And we have so much potential in both of those groups of people. And today we celebrate how we can continue to grow as a state by employing those 100,000 people whose records are being erased today. And employers, take note, start calling these great people.
I know that Senate President Senator Looney intended to be here today, wanted to be here today. I'm not seeing the senator. I just want to acknowledge him for his leadership. And if he joins us, I know there have been many commitments to manage he would like to address, and we'll see how that comes forward. I wanted to take, this is my great privilege to turn next to Governor Ned Lamont and to thank him for his leadership on this and his commitment within the executive branch in partnership with the other branches of state government and stakeholders from across the criminal justice system and the communities. This has been quite a lift to bring us to where we are today, driven by the work of people inside this room. Mr. Governor, it's my honor to introduce you next to us. Thank you.
I think you've heard the power of the advocacy that Justin and Susan, all of us heard for the last 5 years while we're here today, and your voices were heard, and they make a difference. Just reflecting on some of what you just said, Helen, you said this is like a Christmas present, but I think this is also something you've earned, and we need you, and we need you desperately. And I want you to send that signal loud and clear that many of us make a mistake in life. We're held accountable. We come back. It's not a lifetime sentence. And this is not a Christmas present. This is something you have earned. And thank you for that. I think we're doing something right when you've got Connect, the ACLU, JP Morgan, Ronnell Higgins, our new head of public safety, all saying this is the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to do for the people who are getting a second chance, and we all deserve a second chance. But I'm really struck by something the always understated Gary Winfield said, which is we wouldn't need so many second chances if more people had a first chance. And that's something that, you know, we believe this is a first chance state as well. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that folks like you, Helen, and everybody who get that second chance, get that first chance, get the very best opportunity. That's what this state stands for. We're an opportunity state. And if you need that second chance, we're a belief in that second chance. And also, that's why we're here in the church. We believe in redemption. That's something we've learned, especially during this religious season. So I want to thank Gary and Stephen for taking the lead on this. We heard you loud and clear. I want to say to Connect, you've been taking the lead on this. Joe and I were there talking on these very issues some years ago, and I think you've made this a cause. You've made me better understanding about how important it is. And my great friend Mark Pelko, who's heading over to Judiciary sometime, was always your strongest in-house advocate, and you were right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Governor. And now our faith has made the impossible possible again. Amen. And so now it's time to actually wipe the slate clean. And so we invite Governor Lamont and Miss Tammy King forward. As we wipe this slate clean, it is our faith that has bolstered us along the way. Hear the words of the prophet Isaiah. I am the one who wipes the slate clean and erases your wrongdoing. And I will not call to mind your sins anymore. Thus says the Lord God Almighty. The slate is clean. We'll now have again Undersecretary Pelka to come and entertain questions from the press. Undersecretary Pelka.
Certainly no agency neglect involved at all. This has been a massive commitment. Judicial branch, executive branch, state agencies, criminal justice system stakeholders, technology almost entirely, with some policy clarification required. There was a clean slate technical fix bill that was enacted this year, bipartisan support, that were needed for some of the questions that surfaced. But it's hard to feel tangible on an IT project because it's not building a physical bridge, but a technical bridge, or technological bridge was what was created across criminal justice system, agency systems that were never meant to be connected that way. These pathways were built, substantial investment, substantial questions and challenges had to be addressed along the way. And look what was accomplished through the Clean Slate Connecticut. Prior to enactment and implementation of Clean Slate, the main way to get your record erased was pursue a pardon on a micro level, on an individual basis. And based on the challenges and hurdles and time commitment, accomplishing that for everybody with a criminal record, next to impossible. But this is a technology solution that made it happen. A little bit longer than was envisioned by the leaders you see here today, but it happened. And the system has now been activated. We're trying to get estimates together. It's a little over $8 million so far in IT upgrades. I say approximate because there are a lot of moving parts, but IT upgrades were required in all the impacted agencies. Mainly within DESP, because that is the holder of the criminal history. And it's a mixture of funds, of capital bonding, of general fund, even federal ARPA investment.
Mark, can you clarify some of the numbers here? Originally, we were hearing 300,000 people might be here. This board says 104,000. The governor's press release says 80,000.
Yep.
What are the numbers?
It's a little, by the end of January, over 80,000 people are expected to receive a clean slate erasure on their record. That is work that is now underway with the activation of the system. And the clean slate lift begins at the start because it means addressing historical records that are already within the systems. What's exciting about clean slate is it's also prospective. So over the next roughly month and a half, the impacted agency criminal record systems will churn through those historical records, granting the clean slate that this law pursues. Moving forward, people who become eligible in future will receive the record erasure. This system is retroactive and prospective. That's the impact of it. So 80,000 people by the end of January. I think some of the confusion is we're both acknowledging about 11 months ago there were erasures made under the cannabis law. That led to 44,000 charges were erased. With the clean slate work that will finish by the end of January, 178,000 charges will be erased. Then there are two smaller populations that are going to take a little bit of extra work. There was some clarification provided on one group of offenses. That will be done by the end of March. There are also some minor manual review required. Those will be done by the end of June. So I think the emphasis you're seeing is on the work that will be completed by the end of January, and that will be 81,000 people receiving clean slate erasure and 178,000 charges for that group of people.
And what are some of the issues with the manual review? It looks like there are 62,000 issues.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the manual review is required as a result of some IT system transformation that occurred in past years. There is a flag that has been entered for those charges. On a micro level, for example, someone receives a pardon, not a big lift. The notification goes to the agencies, they do the manual check, and it moves forward. But clean slate is different, it's macro. This is law dictating eligibility for erasure. So that work is gonna take just a little bit of time extra to go through those, to clear those away. Important to ensure that the requisite testing and review is conducted. I guess that's what I would leave as underscore. Yes, indeed. And this was a aspect of the law that went live in the beginning of the current calendar year. People who have older offenses than January 1, 2000 may submit a petition to the court to have their records erased. That document, the form to fill out is on the Clean Slate website. And these petitions to the courts have been occurring since the beginning of the calendar year and will be available moving forward. The reason why the pre-2000 cases are not eligible for automated erasure is because several IT systems went live in 2000, and there would be no inadequate, reliable data to complete those automated erasures. So a little more time, unfortunately, is required, but there is a process that's been up and running for several months now that people can pursue. Mm-hmm. The law addresses the records that are managed by the Connecticut criminal justice system agencies, beginning with DESPP. And once it's fully, for each erasure that occurs, that notice is provided across the criminal justice system, notifying that is an erased record. There also are some requirements in the latest Clean Slate law that requires third-party vendors that receive that information to update their information. Very important. When it comes to information that remains online or in newspapers or other venues, there is no ability for the state to roll that back or to address that. This Clean Slate speaks to what comes back when a background check is conducted on a person, which is the principal means of review that occurs in a job interview or a housing application or occupational license or education. So the areas that can be impacted via state law are addressed and are being implemented. Yes, sir. A felony, generally felony, the highest level felonies, felony A, B, C, are ineligible. There are also some felonies and misdemeanors that are excluded. The sheer number of offenses that are eligible is significantly larger than those ones that are excluded. So generally, it's the high level felonies, Ken, that are excluded. And those individuals are not excluded from pardons. And it's fair to acknowledge the limits of the Clean Slate law, and you heard the commitment today to continue overseeing implementation and tracking the impact and considering this in future sessions. People who, with those charges I just mentioned, are eligible to appear before the Pardons Board. That is a means of relief that remains available. And perhaps the goal of Clean Slate is to identify the low-level charges that can be managed through an efficient process under law, leaving the Pardons Board the ability to focus on the more serious charges, more complex issues that are associated with those serious charges. I don't know, neither of the commutations were temporarily halted. Mm-hmm. The pardons, specific to the Clean Slate discussion today, and the erasure of the records, pardons, I believe, are uninterrupted by any of those changes that occurred. Those move forward in the same way. My understanding is that the commutations were temporarily halted while a policy was updated, a new board took over, and the work has resumed on the commutation side of the docket.
Look, I don't want anything fully suspended. We have new leadership there at Pardons and Paroles, and I hope they're taking their job seriously and keeping things on track. No suspension.
Hearing no further, thank you. So, the governor is always teaching me. Thank you, sir. Hearing no further.
Sorry, sir.